Quilters Newsletter TV, the Quilters community, is brought to you by Handy Quilter, designed by a quilter for quilters, and Husqvarna Viking, keeping the world sewing for over 140 years. Hi, and welcome to Quilters Newsletter TV, the Quilters community. I'm Mary Kate Karr-Petras, and with me today is Karen Charles. Karen is an event specialist with Husqvarna Viking. Welcome, Karen.
Welcome. It's great to be here.
And today you're going to show us how to use an embroidery machine to do applique.
Absolutely.
And what machine are we using today?
We're using the Husqvarna Viking Designer Diamond Royale. And it's a machine I have at home. I absolutely love it. There's a lot of different machines that will do this type of technique, and we'll talk about a little bit that as we go, but I wanted to show you from scratch how we started.
Yes.
This is a sample of something that I made. It was very quick to create the design on the computer, but I wanted to show you how easy it is to actually sew it out, and then
Great.
This is how we started. It was a piece of fabric and a piece of batting. Depending upon whether you're going to do it for a trapunto effect or not, this is a cotton batting, but I could have used a polyester high loft batting.
Okay.
That would have given me a really raised look to it. And I'm going to bring over my hoop and set it up. The lines that are drawn in here just divided the sections into quarters so that as I'm trying to line up one section, oh, wrong way, one section from the other, you can see where the next one's got to go. So usually I will keep this kind of closer to me.
Right, you were saying before you might pull it off the table
Right.
to really
Loosen the screws.
feel where the hoops
Right,
click together.
exactly. So there we go. I hope you can all see that well. And the lines right now are just in there to give me an idea of what's straight. At that point I can snap it forward and I can screw it tight and I can get it so that it's nice and snug in the hoop. And then I'm ready to go to the embroidery machine. I'll just tighten it up. Get it tight enough in there so it's not going to move as the embroidery starts happening. And then it's going to get clicked into the frame.
Okay.
I'll lay the fabric down and we're all set to go. I brought up the design on the screen, and this is one that I created on the computer, and we're going to go into the embroidery screen. You're going to see the colors that are being used on the right. There are 4 colors. They don't, when you're doing applique, they might represent the outline stitches that are happening first. The most important thing to start with now is we're going to go into design positioning so we can place this design exactly where we want to be. It's not like it's on a scrap fabric. We have a very specific place where we want to be. So we are going to put a marker stitch down at the bottom bottom left-hand corner, and we're going to make sure that that corner is exactly where we want it to go. So at this point, I can drag on the screen up to where we want it to be, and then I can fine-tune it with our arrow keys here to make sure the design is going to be exactly on the line where we want. Oops, a little too far. If I hold it on there, and then I can put the needle down, and you can see that it's going to go a little farther over.
So you can really fine-tune the placement here.
And now, in this case, I've only got one design on there, but if I wanted to be able to find out where it's going to be on the line across here, then I can actually select that point and make sure that it's going to line up. You can see that my fabric's not in there straight, so then I can get it so that it's all lined up perfectly, and I know the design's going to stitch out exactly where I want it to be. The same thing can happen to the top left-hand corner, and I could also choose to move it at any point along the line to make sure it's in there exactly where I want it to be. And so I can adjust it like that. It's that easy to get a design to line up, and it's for one design it's not important, but if you're going to put multiple designs together it becomes very important. So the first thing it's going to do when I press the start button is going to outline, what, this way? And you'll see that on the screen it says a stop command. It stops specifically so I can add the fabric And when I press the start button, it's going to go around and attach it. The first
Wow.
color was just to show you where it was going to be stitching. And then now I know where the fabric's going to go. It'll go around and attach it again. And this is doing a double stitch to really make it effective. If I wanted to make it in my choice on the software, I could have done a zigzag return, so it would have anchored down even more. Did you notice it cuts the jump stitches as it goes? Isn't that wild?
I was just thinking that.
And it stops again for me to do the cutting away the fabric. I couldn't leave it on there, but so to make it a little easier for everybody to see, I'm going to pull it over here. Hold on. And lay it down so you can see how I'm going to cut away.
Okay.
These are applique scissors. They don't have the typical flange on them, but if you go in, lay them flat like this, you can see how you can cut away. I'm trying to keep my hands out of the way so you can see. And the idea is to come as close as you can to the fabric, to the stitching line, so that you're not going to have the extras showing. And all of the stitching is going to be covered up with the next stitch, which is the satin stitch.
So you don't have to pin the fabric down or anything like that?
You don't have to pin the fabric. And the stitching is, I just make sure that the stitching, when it's stitching the fabric down, that it is going to be flat. And you can come in there and get very close. The closer you are, the less chance you have of little threads hanging out. But that gives you an idea of what we're doing. Then we're going to put it back on, and with magic, hold your thread, start the machine up, and now it's going to go over. It's going to stitch around the inside and then go around the outside to give you an idea where the satin stitch is going to be. And then it'll start the satin stitch and finish all three of them. And now it's the satin stitch. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
So to finish the green, I'm going to change the thread color. It's quick. We've got our fancy needle threader down here. And we're ready to go for the next color. So this is going to do the outline. Oops. And show us where to put our next fabric.
That was really fast.
Yep. There we go. There's our stop. Oh. And we're ready to go. Thread. This is really bad. That's what happens when you don't have your fabric held flat.
Aha.
And it's going to stop again for us to cut away. I'll put it out here so everybody can see. And you'll notice I wasn't paying enough attention to how
we were
flat it
moving
is.
quickly here, but at home you would be.
But it gives you an
flattening that
idea
out.
of what you need to be careful of when you're adding your fabric.
Well, it's sort of an improvised trapunto look.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you cut a little bit too close, it's not going to be a problem because the satin stitch is going to cover it up also.
It's going to hold it all down. As we saw, it goes back over it quite thoroughly.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And then we're going to put it back in and finish stitching it out. Hold my thread, press the start button, and I'm ready to go.
Okay, it's ending.
And it's done.
Yep.
Now, on the screen, you'll notice there's a stippling stitch that's showing. We're not going to stitch that now, But afterwards, when the whole quilt was put together, we could come back in and add that stippling stitch and use the same design positioning to make sure it wasn't stitching over the applique designs.
And it knows exactly where to go and where not to go.
Exactly.
Wow.
And for our purposes today, if we were going to be doing a trapunto design, we would take it out of the hoop, turn it over, and cut away the batting. And so then we could have a raised look. When we put the whole quilt together, then there would be another layer of batting that would be added to it. And so then you would get that raised look for your design.
Fantastic.
Now, for the next step, if we were going to add a second one, I've got an example that's already set up, ready to go. And we would bring the design back in here, mirror image it so that it would line up and go through the same process of making sure it was lined up where we want to do. When you are creating designs with an embroidery machine, part of the process of thinking through what you're doing is how big a hoop you have. If you have a machine that only has a hoop that's a 5-inch hoop, it will give you less ability to combine designs than if you have a larger one. This hoop is a 360 by 200 millimeter, which is like 13 by 8 inches.
Okay.
So I can do an 8-inch block in a continuous place. I could have put 2 of these in at the same time and not had to rehoop. And if you're working with the Majestic hoop, which the designer Diamond Royale has a Majestic hoop that works with it, you can do all 4 of them at one time without having to rehoop. So it gives you a lot more ability to play around and create different designs and less time hooping them up and moving it from one place to another.
You just set the machine up and go have your cup of tea and come back a few minutes later.
Absolutely. Isn't that fun?
Yes.
It just amazes me every time I see it, how fast and easy. If you have any fabric that's been set up that's a little bit outside, you have little fringes, I left them on there for you to see, then you can just trim them up afterwards and it's really easy to do.
Let's take a look at how you do this on the computer.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So I'm working in 16 Premier software and I've opened up Design Creator. This is where I'm creating my applique shapes. I have gone in and made a selection in Applique to give me a double stitch, a running stitch and a double stitch, and then a satin border. I could have chosen something different if I wanted to. And then I'm going to go in and choose my shape of my heart. And the only thing I need to do to actually create stitches is click on the button, and now I have my heart shape. I can make it any size I want to by adjusting it. And then I can select a different color. Let's make it green. And then I'm going to select my other shapes that I use for the leaf. And that would be this one. Oh, that's the wrong shape that I wanted to. Get rid of it, go down to the one below. But you can see how fast and easy it is to add the shapes. You click on the button, you can mirror image it and rotate it to where you want. And then I am going to copy it and paste it and put a second one in over here. And I could take the time to line it up so it's perfectly placed. But right now, just trying to give you an idea of how to do this. And there's my next one. And that's how I created the design. Didn't take very long at all. And if I wanted to shift one of them or move them, I could get a box around them and move it into position. And at this point, I'm going to copy the whole design and bring it into our 60 extra screen and paste it. Because I want to rotate it, I want it to come in like this on the screen. And so I am going to copy it and go into my Quilt Block Wizard. And this is the best part about this software. I can add a stippling stitch around the edge of it. I'm pasting it in, and now I can decide where I want it to be. I can click and drag it so it's exactly where I want it placed. And I can change the margin around it so it comes in very close to the design. And when I hit the next button, there's my stippling. If I want the stippling to be very small and tight, I can change the size of it, and then it'll move it in tight. If I want it to be loose and wide, I could do that. The other options I could do is I could do parallel lines and make it so that I have cross-hatching just as easily. And there's my cross-hatching. I can adjust anything. I can even put a motif in it. But at this point, I'm finished. That design is done. I'm going to get rid of my first design by deleting it. and there's my design, and it's ready to be stitched out. It's that fast to create a design.
Fantastic.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it's fantastic.
I love it. Now that I've shown you how to create the design on the computer, I want to give you an idea of another design that I've done. It's a little bit more involved, but using the same shapes and techniques to create the design. I just love how you can take something that's very simple and make something so beautiful out of it. And I think that it changes the kinds of things that you would do with applique.
Yeah, and this one is more layered, so that
Yep.
would be another step that you'd want to pay attention to in
Yep.
your design process. But as you said, the software makes it very easy.
It does.
And the machine does the hard part for you.
It
and
does.
you
That's
get to
the
have
best
fun.
part.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for being here today and showing us these wonderful techniques and how
You're
you use your
welcome.
machine to achieve such beautiful results.
It's been fabulous. I've enjoyed it.
Thanks so much for joining us, and be sure to check out the quiltersnewsletter.com website and our YouTube channel for more videos that Karen is demonstrating for us today. Take care. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Quilters Newsletter TV, the quilters community, is brought to you by Handy Quilter, designed by a quilter for quilters, and Husqvarna Viking, keeping the world sewing for over 140 years.